As my mother always said, my father was at his best on these vacations. He could relax, not think about all of his projects at home. But he enjoyed his projects. He called them his hobbies. They were his way of life. It was a gratifying feeling when working with my dad, and the day would be done, and he talked proudly of all the work we accomplished, how things went so well. I felt so good to please my dad, and I think every one of us really wanted to please our dad. Our mother was always pleased with us no matter what, but we really wanted to please our dad. Any family party I went to, and there were many family parties with this many kids, we have a family party all the time, and when I'd arrive, he'd signal me over. Come on, sit next to me here. And I feel like the most special person in the room. He'd have something very important to tell me, usually about a project that he had planned for me my next day off, or just to talk about my daughter Julie, how she's doing in London, and how the grandchild's doing. I'd like to thank my mother and father for the good genes they gave us kids. They are good stock. Mother's going strong at 88. My father, I think, could have lived to 110. And he still had great teeth. He had perfect teeth. Just perfect. My father enjoyed the parties at his waterfront home. He was especially fond of volleyball. He played volleyball until he was in his 80s. And the rule was he could kick the ball. And he, even if it balanced, as long as he could kick it, that counted. And it would go over quite often. Now, every year, sometimes twice a year, my parents would go on their own vacations. We'd have the run of the house. And we had parties. We had many parties. Loud and wild parties, as the neighbors could attest to here. A few years back, my dad came home from one of these vacations, and he loved his lawn. As a matter of fact, he loved grass. He went to a grass seed convention. He took courses on grass, and, fuchsia, regular grass. But anyway, he had this hill. If anybody lives on the street, this hill is full of grass, this long. And he's so proud. He always calls me on the phone and tells me how good his grass on the hill is doing. And it's the best hill on the whole street. And his lawn he just loved. And every year he'd come home and that lawn would just be dug up from the volleyball games, from the party, from all the beer being spilled. And this one year he came home and the lawn was perfect. We were all busy that year. One thing was going out the other. And he told us he was disappointed. He wanted us to make use of the house. It was there for us to enjoy. Dad loved machines. His lawnmower, his lawn sprinklers, the fountain, radios, his boat railway. He loved tools. My mother would say he liked all this stuff because it would help get his work done. He liked his workers, his crew, his army, us, the 9 children. We helped get his work done. As a child, my father would play catch with me with the baseball for hours out in the yard. We'd play tennis together in Victoria. He taught me how to play cribbage. We'd play for hours. He built a basketball court. My father was fun to laugh with. TV just came out when I was a kid. It was a big thing for my dad to have that black and white TV. And Jackie Gleason would come on once a week, and this was our time off. And we'd all sit around that couch and watch Jackie Gleason. I loved to laugh with my father. I have lost a father and a friend. I always miss you, Dad. You will always be a big part of me. I'll see you in heaven.